So today we're going to cover underbite, and that's where you've got your egg and the top of the egg and the bottom of the egg don't sit correctly. So the top of the egg will be sitting back on the bottom of your egg, and you'll see some of the gasket at the front sticking out a little bit. So I'll get the camera in here and have a look at ours. Now hopefully you can see here that we've got some of the gasket and the metal, bottom metal band sticking out, protruded from the dome here. I've actually just artificially set this up just to show you how it is. This wasn't how my egg was until this morning, but I'll show you how you can remedy that. So what we're going to look at are these bands, and essentially the issue comes from the bands and how far they're apart and how low they are or how level they are. So if you look at my bands at the front, they're fairly close together, and this bottom band is sitting just below the level, just below the level of the ceramic there and the gasket. However, if we track it round, go around, you can see it's falling, and this is a common problem. If we get round to back here where the hinges are, you can see now that I can see a lot of green, the egg in here, and the band has literally slid down, is now resting on this lumpy bit. That lumpy bit there isn't for the bands to rest on. And the reason that's happened is we've got the egg hot, and what we haven't had is this bottom screw or bolt tight enough to hold the band in place when the eggs got hot, and so it just dropped down when we've opened the lid. And what you can see with this is these two pieces here on the hinge, they're not aligning with each other. So what we need to do is remedy that. So it's literally a matter of loosening these bands off a little bit, pulling that bottom band up, putting the dome back in the correct place, and then tightening these bands. That's what we're going to be doing. So in order to change those bands, we need 4 different bits of kit. Well, 3 really. 2 of them, these spacers. You would have got those with your egg when it was delivered if you've got the old style bands, and we are talking about the old style bands here. I want a 1/2 inch spanner, and I want a 7/16 socket. It is best to use imperial size equipment. That's what the egg was designed to have. So the first thing I want to do is undo these screws, these bolts, but only to the point where I can move the band up and down just. I want a bit of friction there. So I'm going to loosen them, start with the bottom, and I can see that maybe a little bit more is going to start. I can start to move it, and do the same with the top one here. That one's nice and tight, and you'll feel it. You'll feel them loosen off. And again, I can just about move these on that dome, maybe a little bit more. What you don't want to do is over loosen them so they slip over these bits. You need them to stay on your egg. So I'm going to loosen those off. And then the second thing, that's with my 1/2 inch spanner, and the second thing I'm going to do is just loosen the 2 bolts either side of the hinge on the top level. So those were fairly loose because I messed with it this morning. And that's just to allow the hinge to move a bit. So I'm not taking them off, I'm just loosening them. Okay, and now what I should be able to do, if I mess with my egg, you can see it already, you can see I can move that hinge, I can squeeze it, and so on. So now what I want to do, and this is the difficult bit, is to try and get that piece of plastic retainer between those 2 bolts. So if you see there's 3 in a row here and 1 out, it's the middle one and the one that sticks out. So we'll get that on. And we might have to do this with a bit of juggling. It's not the easiest, it never is, but I will have a crack at that. And it may be a matter of lifting both bands and pulling your dome towards you. You're not far off, but I'm going to have a crack at that. So give me a couple of minutes. So what I've done is I've pulled the dome forward and pulled the hinge up, and now I should be able to, I've put it on this back one, I should be able to get the front one on. Oops, it's popped off the back one. It's a little bit tricky, but there you go, one on that, and I've done the one on the other side. We need those on if you ever want to take the dome out, but it also helps get the hinge in the proper alignment here, so that's why I do it. And now what I can do is I want to start looking at pulling my bottom band of my egg, so that I've got just a tiny bit of green showing all the way around. And I'm going to go and just do that. So I've moved my bottom band, so what you should see, I can just see a little bit of green there, and if we follow it, chase it all the way around, it's the same level all the way around. So it's level, it's a little bit down at the front, but that's no bad thing, tiny bit, 0.5 millimeter. But what you can already see is there's no underbite already, and I've only dealt with the bottom band. But this is level all the way around with that tiny little bit of green. So I'm happy now that's in the right place. So what I need to do now is get in there, I'll put this down on the tripod and start tightening this bottom band up. So I've just got a 1/2 inch spanner, and I'm going to tighten that until the bolt bends, and really you can't over tighten this. So that's about as much as I can tighten it, and what you should be able to see is that bolt is now bent. And that's because these two bits of metal here are angled. If your bolt isn't bent, your egg band isn't tight enough. So I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is go about leveling the top band and tightening that up as well, and I'll show you that in a second. So again, if we look at this, and I'll get down a little bit, you should be able to just see a little bit of green in there above and below the gasket. So I've done that all the way around. I'm happy with that. So I will tighten that band up as well. So let me go ahead and do that. You see there's a slight gap in the gasket here, and that's because it's not in the same place as it was with the old gasket, but that will bed in. So I'm going to tighten this top band in exactly the same way. And again, that bolt is beginning to bend. You cannot over tighten this, you won't break the ceramic. There we go. So that bolt is now tightened, they're both tightened. And now the final thing to do is tighten this hinge in place. So I'm going to tighten the inside one, so the one nearest the hinge on this side. Doing that just by hand tighten with this. Same on the other side, inside one. Once you're happy with its placement, then you can do the outside one. And I'll do the same on the other side. And that is as simple as that. And now everything's tightened, we're happy, we can take the retainers back off. So I'll do that on both sides. And I guess the proof in the pudding, we'll have a look at the front. Absolutely zero underbite. We'll open our egg. All looks fine, it's a bit grubby. And we'll pull it shut. And we still got practically zero underbite. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm happy with that. If you find out you've got a bit of smoke escaping after you've done this, what you could do is loosen this top one and push the dome down a bit. So it looks like I've got a slight gap here. The way to test it is put a note in there and see if it's gripping. In fact, I'll do that. I'll go and find a note to show you. So the Americans call this the dollar bill test. Well, we don't have dollar bills, we have £10 notes. So I'm going to put that in there. And what you'll see is I'm pulling it, it's falling out. So it means that gap is there. So what I need to do is adjust that. So I'm going to loosen the top band and then just push the dome down. And that's because my gasket has been compressed. It's been this one's a couple of years old. So I need that to be a little bit closer. So I'll just loosen the top band, push the dome down and then tighten it up again. I'll leave the hinge as it is because that's holding the bands at the correct distance. So I'm just going to do that and then I'll show you again. Right, I've adjusted that slightly. I've just loosened it, pulled the top band up slightly. So there's a little bit more green showing around here where I had a bit of a gap. The dome sat down a little bit better. So if we now do the dollar bill test, you can see there's a lot more friction there, and that means it's a good seal. Now what you may find on your egg is if you've had underbite for a while, and I can just about show it here, it's a little bit more fluffy at the front than the back. So if when you're doing that test, it may be that if you've had your dome off a long while and then you align it, you're going to get leakage somewhere. You might need to replace the gasket. but on this one it should be fine. Another test, another way of seeing that you've your dome has been completely misaligned, too wide apart at the back, is that it will be dragging over this part of the gasket and it will rub it off. So if you get that, you can see it has done a tiny bit on this one, but if you're getting that, what you can do is just cut a section of gasket out and replace that, but you do want a proper seal. But this one should be now sitting. Very little underbite, I'm really happy with that. And I've got a seal all the way around. So that was probably a 10-15 minute job to get that realigned. I'm happy with that. I used 3 tools or 4 tools if you count the £10 note. My gasket is fine on this egg, a little bit dirty but fine. My egg's now realigned. There is no need to change to the new hinge system if you've got that underbite. You just need to adjust, bring that bottom band up level, bring the top band so that it's a good width between them. They should be level all the way around, and pull that dome forward, and you'll find that the hinge at the back, if you've got too much distance between the bands at the back, it will then stop it closing properly and cause your dome to sit backwards. So get it correct and you'll be fine. As ever with these videos, if you've liked what you've seen, subscribe to my channel. I'm more than happy to take requests for other videos and other tips, so do email in. It's Nick, N-I-C, no K on that, nick@meatsmokefire.co.uk, or phone me. My phone number's out there, it's on my webpage. So the website is www.meatsmokefire.co.uk. But yeah, get out, get your egg adjusted, and if you've got any requirements in terms of things you want to purchase, feel free to give me a shout as well. All right, cheers.